All right, good evening. I have your attention. We're going to start our program. All right. So thank you for attending our conference. I think we're going to start this evening by thanking the staff of the Armory Studios, Kim Rainey and her staff. They did a great job working with us to help keep the costs down, and those were passed on to you in relatively low registration fees. So we worked hard on that to keep it low so that people could attend, and we're grateful to them for working with us and all the great things they've been doing while we've been here. So thank you. All right, next, we have a couple of presentations. Unfortunately, they had to cancel and weren't able to attend. But we have from the Mayor of Schenectady an official proclamation, which I will read to you. Whereas the USSEE serves as a platform for intellectual exchange and collaboration concerning the theory, policy, and implementation of sustainable development, USSEE comprises an interdisciplinary cohort of academics and practitioners devoted to devising solutions to intricate economic, social, and environmental challenges. And whereas ecological economics, the science of sustainability, underpins USSEE's approach, uniting scholars and practitioners across natural and social science disciplines. They are committed to enhancing theoretical models and practical solutions for long-term economic and social well-being while preserving the regenerative capacity of the natural environment. And whereas USSEE members engage in diverse activities, including research, policy formulation, and community projects to advance the interdisciplinary field of ecological economics, USSEE fosters dialogue across disciplines and professional contexts to address urgent social and ecological issues. Whereas USSEE is dedicated to identifying the concrete solutions and actions for a more just and sustainable future, USSEE plays a crucial role in setting the research agenda for ecological economics in the United States and advocating for effective economic, social, and environmental policies. Now, therefore, Gary McCarthy, Mayor of the City of Schenectady, proclaims, we're a couple days late, Thursday, June 6th as USSEE Day in the City of Schenectady, and the City of Schenectady is truly grateful for the USSEE and their tireless work in sustainability. Our next presenter was actually going to be here, State Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara, but he has provided a state proclamation. It's quite large, as you can see, and it's in honor of our 13th biennial conference, and this one's a little shorter. So, whereas it is important to recognize the organizations dedicated to improving New York and the creation of a greener, more sustainable future. And whereas for more than a decade, the USSEE has supported the collaboration on theories and policies for sustainable development along with the implementation of these practices. And whereas consisting of academics and practitioners across a variety of disciplines, the USSEE works to identify solutions to complex and interrelated economic, social, and environmental problems to create a more sustainable future at the local, state, and federal levels. And for its numerous efforts to promote sustainability and provide answers and solutions to create a greener world, the USSEE deserves recognition. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara hereby honors the USSEE on the occasion of their 13th biennial conference. And we also have a federal acknowledgement. Congressman Paul Punko is supposed to be here. Something happened, he canceled at the last minute. they will be sending some sort of recognition as well. Once we get that, we'll get it up on our website and Facebook pages and so forth, so that you can all see how all levels of government are recognizing the work that you all do. All right. Next, I would like for the board of directors to please stand up. Don't be shy. So these, if you don't know, these are your board of directors, and they've worked very, very hard. So please take them around. Thank you. So they've been very instrumental in all the activities we've been doing these past couple of years. They've been instrumental in the conference, and I think it was appropriate to recognize them.
Thank God.
You're welcome. We have a special announcement, a coming attraction, if you will. The tentative site for the 2026 conference will be in Oberlin College. So we are a little bit ahead of the game, and we have a place. And so stay tuned for more information, and we hope to see you all there. Also, we have a special seminar coming up with the editors of Ecological Economics, Stefan Baumgartner and Agum Olinek. I mispronounced her name, I apologize. And they are going to be talking about the journal, what kind of things they look for, publishing in the journal, all kinds of aspects of the journal. We are going to make this a members only seminar. We want to provide a special benefit for being a member. So we are going to have that coming up. So please keep an eye out for that. And hopefully you'll all be able to see that and benefit from it. It's a really special thing that you're doing for us. Next will be Seth Binder, and he's got an announcement.
Well, I'm very excited to get to announce that we've got some money. That's always a really fun thing, and especially when you can get a hold of that money. So we are usually a pretty shoestring organization, but we received an anonymous large gift, and the board of directors decided to allocate a portion of those funds to a mini grant, program to support collaborative work in ecological economics. So we will be inviting teams of collaborators with representation from different institutions, or at least collaborators from the same institution but different departments who are working in the area of ecological economics. To submit proposals for funding of up to $3,000 for per team, per project. And we anticipate that the winning team members will also receive 1 year of IC membership. With the expectation that at least one representative of the team receiving funding will present some of the results or preliminary results of their work at the subsequent biennial conference. And we anticipate being able to offer 3 rounds of funding, and are hoping to issue our first RFP, our first request for proposals, as early as August or September. So stay tuned for that.
And as you know, we also have a fellows program. We have 2 more who are going to be inducted as the year goes on. And we will be, as Robbie announced yesterday, having a fellows program that will be open. And we're looking to really expand that. And because there's really a number of individuals who have been influential in ecological economics that need to be honored. And they need to be recognized by our community for doing basically the grunt work, just building the foundation. And putting the bricks in place so that we have something today. So please look out for that. As a board, we've been really working hard to try to provide benefit for you as members. If you happen to not be a member, join. There is a lot going on and there's gonna be more. We have a lot more initiatives that we wanna start up. And we're going to, one way or the other, it's gonna happen. Even if it's by will, it will happen. And so there's gonna be more content, there's gonna be more benefits. And we're gonna grow. The goal for our membership by the end of the year is 200 members. We stand at 178. We are going to accomplish that goal. And we need your help. Spread the message of the organization, spread the message of ecological economics. Tell them there is a benefit here. This is the importance of ecological economics in the field. As we grow, we become stronger. We have more voice. We have more voice with policy. We have more voice in academics. We have more voice in practitioners. So we need to grow and we need your help to do that. So please, if you will, do that. So thank you. All right, finally to the probably the most important thing of the evening is the announcement of the Herman Daly Award. For those of you that don't know, the Herman Daly Award is given in honor of Herman Daly, one of the visionaries who founded the field of ecological economics. The award is designed to recognize individuals who have connected ecological economic thinking to practical applications and implementation of solutions that are sustainable in scale, equitable in distribution, and efficient in allocation. The board convenes prior to the conference, actively seeks nominations for the award, researches the candidates, and then ultimately votes on the award. I will say this award winner, which we'll announce in a minute, is no secret, but was unanimous. And the award is given in conjunction with our biennial conference. As you know, this year's award winner is John Erickson. For those of you who don't know who John is, which I think most in this room do, but just in case, John Erickson is the David Blittensdorf Professor of Sustainability Science and Policy in the Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources. Hopefully that's still correct. He has published widely, as you all should know, in ecological economic theory and applied work on human health, sustainable development, land, biodiversity, and so much more. He's got 6 books, 7, 6 or 7 books. I tried to get an accurate count, but I got better information on your family than number of books. But 6 books, over 70 peer-reviewed journal articles and book chapters, well over 100 conference presentations. He's well-spoken. He's really taken ecological economics to heart, as you know, and has spread the message. He's involved in many activities to promote ecological economics. But that being said, while we're recognizing him for ecological economics, I think perhaps his most significant contribution, most significant achievement is his family. He's married to his wife, Pat, who's here tonight. He has sons, Louis and John, and he is now a grandfather to granddaughter Zoe. So when we think about the measure of a human, right? yeah, we're a society, we recognize them for their work. And their various aspects of life. But when we measure a human being, what truly tells something about a person is their family, is their personal life. And by that measure, John is a double winner. And so with that, I want to bring up John and present him the Herman Daly Award. I thought you were gonna say something. You just must.
Okay, well. Don't mention my family because it makes me cry. It's not a good thing. So John did ask me to give a talk this evening. And I have a dance floor too, which is kind of dangerous as well. Feel like we're at our wedding, Pat. So we had a similar kind of venue for our wedding, the dance floor and just sort of lighting and everything else. 34 years ago. So, geez, Herman Daly, I just want to start there. I've got a bit of a tabletop activity in mind, because we've been hearing a lot of talks and slides and stuff, so I thought I'd use some slides, but maybe we would have this be more of a discussion, if you will. So Herman, as you know, passed away almost 2 years ago, October 28th, 2022. And this piece from the New York Times was out just in July of that year. And I feel like Herman died just as people were starting to accept his message, accept ecological economics, accept our critique. So in some sense, you know, he died in his 80s, but he died too young because he's not seen the growth of this field and conferences like this. He was a pioneer of our field, and folks like myself and Josh have been honored to work with him, and it's such an honor to receive this award in his name, which we created all the way back in 2003 at the second conference that we had in Saratoga Springs. Let's work here. I did a piece on Herman's legacy the month after he passed for the conversation, and really what compelled me to sort of try to follow in his footsteps was that he wasn't afraid to talk about inconvenient truths, right? He wasn't afraid to point out all of the misinformation about our economy and our relationship between the economy, society, and environment. Herman was a pathbreaker, and I feel like all of us have some very, like, maybe together we could fill his shoes. Certainly not any one of us could do that by ourselves. But Daly was a master at bringing together people around this thought of ecological economics. And again, I think his message in our field and the work that you're all involved with, like, it's here now, it's present. I feel like when folks like Josh and I came into the field, we were frustrated PhD students at Cornell together and trying to kind of make linkages that didn't exist, trying to teach ourselves topics that didn't exist, and quite by accident, discovering ecological economics. And I'm sure all of you have your own stories of how you came to this field. For me, it was a free book pile with a book by Herman Daly that had ecology, economy, and ethics in the title. And I, that semester, was taking a class, one in ethics, one in ecology, and one in economics. And I was so confused. I was like, how is it that these classes on this campus are all describing the same world? And just by chance, I discovered a Daly book in a free book pile, went into my advisor's office, declared I was an ecological economist, and haven't looked back since. So I'm sure many of you have similar stories of how you've come to the field. I was just talking to a young woman from who's here visiting from Puerto Rico, who's a sophomore in high school and discovered our field. So it's amazing to see the sort of intergenerations amongst us. Maybe you saw just today, there was a New York Times piece. That the first person they mentioned in the piece is Herman Daly. And then they talk about this, the sort of movement side of ecological economics, the degrowth movement. And the title of the piece, in today's times, to shrink the economy, save the world. Economic growth has been ecologically costly, and so a movement in favor of degrowth is growing. And that theme has been woven throughout our couple of days here together. So our time is now, and this is really exciting. Like when I came into the field, it was very fringy. And there was one job opening for an ecological economist and academic in academia at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I was lucky enough to land it. And we started a PhD program there in ecological economics. Now, those students include John Polomini. John was a student of ours. Includes students all across the world, in fact. We have students in Vienna, students in Barcelona, students in Leeds. All those hotspots of ecological economics were because of this kind of early investment in the field. What's today? So Rigo reminded me of this quote this morning. He hosted a film about modern monetary theory. And this quote is often attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, but I Googled it today and apparently he attributes it to somebody else. But this idea that first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. I don't know about the win part, but it feels like we're past the ignore you stage, which is where I started in this field over 30 years ago. I've certainly been in the laugh at you part of the field, but I feel like we're actually past that now. So maybe we're in the they fight you stage, right? The inconvenient truth stage, where publications like the New York Times are picking up on the themes of our field and saying, hey, maybe there's something here, but they're still doing but Paul Krugman says this, that kind of thing. But I feel like in many circles that I walk in, at least, we're in the acceptance stage or the win stage. You need to go no further than the World Economic Forum, not exactly a liberal group, right? This is a group that is entrepreneurs, business leaders, CEOs, government officials, right? This is sort of, they're left of center for sure, but this is the establishment folks. And they put out this global risk report, and the last one just came out a few months ago. And if you look at the kinds of things that they are worried about, so this is a survey of about 1,500 experts from around the world, done by two leading groups in the insurance business. The insurance business is very interested in ecological economics, right? Assessing the severe risk that we face over the next decade and this idea that cooperation's under pressure, weakened economies and societies only need the smallest little shock in order to pass these tipping points, and using words like resilience, which we've used for a long, long time, but is really kind of coming of age as well. And when they survey their experts, the number one risk that these business leaders are worried about is extreme weather. So I'm not sort of quoting, the Stockholm Resilience Center, who's been on the ecological economics page for a long time. I'm quoting corporate executives, business leaders, government leaders, and the insurance industry that is saying the number one thing we're worried about is extreme weather. AI, of course, is in there, which everyone's talking about. This survey 2 years ago didn't even mention AI. Societal and political polarization, cost of living crisis, cyber attacks, all of those things that are kind of in the nightly news are in there. But the one that I take notice of is the first one, the environmental survey. And then when they ask these experts, like in 2 years, what are you worried about? In 10 years, what are you worried about? 10 years out, it's extreme weather, it's critical change to Earth systems, it's biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, it's natural resource shortages, it's pollution. They're talking and framing like ecological economists. Right? So we're here, we're now, right? This is our time. And I only wish Herman was here to see it. Because ecological economics is in center stage, maybe beyond even the fighting stage. And finally, people are realizing that everything's connected, right? That the social crises, the economic crises, the environmental crises, the resource shortage crises are all connected, right? You've probably heard the framing of the poly crisis, right? This is the world that we've been talking about for decades, that Daly was talking about at least since the 1960s, right? And we're here, we're now, and we're finally kind of seeing this shift in mindset that's realizing that these things are not isolated. They're all connected. If you pull out just the environmental piece and some of the conclusions of this risk assessment, and Robbie Richardson was just talking about the US risk assessment that's being done under the Office of Management and Budget with similar kinds of conclusions. Long-term potential irreversible self-perpetuating changes to critical planetary systems, right? What we've been talking about at our conferences year in, year out for a long, long time. Certainly since I discovered ecological economics in the mid-90s. Threshold response, tipping points, right? These are business leaders, economic leaders, folks who report to and consult to heads of state who are talking the language of ecological economics. So this is my conclusion, right? Before we do our activity. Finally, people are realizing this is ridiculous, right? I'm sure glad the hole isn't at our end, right? They're realizing that everything's connected, right? That the human species is connected globally, that we're connected to our environment. The words of Herman Daly, our economy is embedded in society and our society is embedded in ecosystems, right? It's such a simple starting point. The piece I did for the conversation just starts with that image of all Herman did for his whole career was say over and over and over and over again, put the square inside the circle, put the economy inside the ecosystem. That starting point changes everything. And that interconnectedness is finally, the world is catching up to what we have to say. So I thought we would do some crowdsourcing, okay? The sort of like end of day 2 of this conference. We got a half day tomorrow. But I've been really loving the talks and the conversations, especially the workshopping that's going around, seeing the kind of new generation of ecological economists kind of take over meetings like this. I feel like I get this reward. It's time for me to retire. This is awesome. Like I'm ready. I'm done. Find me a beach. Sign me up. But you know, let's sort of think through this systems change, because I do fear like where we are is still far short of where we need to be. And I do fear that our conversation is still largely around transition and fixing the current system instead of transformation and imagining the new. And I think that's the kind of next frontier for our group, is to keep pushing, not accept that ecological economics has come of age and the media is catching up. And that if you read the obituaries of Herman Daly, they were in the Washington Post, they were in the New York Times, they were in the Guardian, they were in major publications all around the world. That's great. That should give us some sense of acceptance, right? But it's not enough. Who's familiar with the 2 loops model? It's really been promoted quite a bit by the Berkana Institute. Just my students. Okay. I find this, nothing in my career I've done that's original, like zero. Just sort of taken other people's ideas and repackaged them and try to communicate them as best I can. In fact, I'm not used to giving talks anymore because I do workshops and I work with citizens groups and I'm used to like explaining what ecological economics is, and I was really nervous about this. Like most of you know what it is. Like that's like my whole talk these days. It's explaining what it is. But the two loops model again has been popularized by the Berkana Institute, but it has lots of kind of wisdoms that are behind it from lots of different cultures and lots of different expressions, and it's basically a kind of systems thinking tool. So I thought we would spend a few minutes walking through and thinking about where we are on this stage of the conference about the dominant system and the emergent system. And those are the two loops, right? It's really simple. It has a lot, if you're familiar with Buzz Holling's work in panarchy, kind of comes from that idea of there's a backward loop and a forward loop in panarchy. This simplifies it a little bit more and talks about kind of the rise, peak, and fall of dominant systems, and then the seeding and emergence of new systems. And it starts from a very simple starting point, as all of Herman's work started from very simple starting points, that all systems, you ready for it? Dina, you know this well. All systems die, right? All systems like eventually go away. And one of our biggest problems, we don't accept, I learned this from Nina, we don't accept death in our culture, right? So some of the work ahead is to sort of imagine the death of the dominant system and how we need to both hospice some of that system, help it die peacefully, thoughtfully, respectfully, and use that as compost, right? To feed and nurture and invest in the new system. Right? Any of us who have thought for a second about ecology knows this to be true. So all systems, right, go from this stage of growth, peak, and decline. And you can think about hundreds of examples in your own life. Your own personal self, of course, is going to go through this. I just lost my mom in January. We used hospice. Hospice was just a wonderful way to help her end her life in a peaceful, dignified way at home where she wanted to die, right? That's the idea. How do we help current systems die peacefully, go away? Because they've outlived their purposes. And how do we use that death to inspire and renew new life? So this is the end of the story. Dominant systems have stewardship. They rise, they peak, they fall. On the fall, it's up to us to hospice them, to help with that transition. And then emerging systems have innovators, innovations, social, ecological, technological, economic innovations and innovators that need to be named. They need to be connected, which I feel is a sort of purpose of a society like ours. They need to be nourished, and then ultimately these transition paths need to be illuminated. That's the kind of conversation I want to have with you. So step one, I want you to turn to a neighbor at your table and answer this very simple question. We're really good at this first question. What are the characteristics of the dominant economic system? I don't want long speeches. I don't want PowerPoints. I want like a couple of keywords. What are the characteristics? And I use system without, it's singular, not plural. What is the characteristics of the dominant economic system that we all live and work in? Go. 3 minutes. And they can be good characteristics or bad characteristics. Okay, 1 minute. I'm gonna ask for a couple of keywords. Get your keywords ready. Okay, here we go. What are the characteristics of the dominant economic system? Table 1, give me a word.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, no, not me.
I'll use her comment and go with, yeah.
Nothing's enough. Always want more. Okay, table 2.
Concentration of power.
Concentration of power. Table 3. Your table 3. Give me greed. Greed. Greed? Greed. Okay. G-R-E-E-D. Greed. Greed is good though, right? Gordon Gekko, Wall Street. Table 4. Carbon intensive. Carbon intensive. Table 5. Defending legacy. Ooh. Yeah. Defending legacy. Table 6.
Collective delusion.
Collective delusion. Like evolution. But each in competition, right? Each table instantly is trying to outdo each other. Competition. All right. We are really good in this society and in this field of critiquing the current system, right? We're really good at pointing out its failures. We're really good at measuring all the problems and the missed things and the loss of this and the depletion of that, right? I feel like this is our field in a nutshell, where we are getting better at and where we have to be pushing the envelope as we mature and as we move from the fight stage to the win or acceptance stage is the second loop. So the next question. We got to name it, connect it, nourish it, and illuminate it. What are the characteristics of the emerging economic systems with an S? Because we don't know what's going to emerge and be dominant, right? What's going to be that new loop that flourishes, peaks, and then itself dies? Right? What are the characteristics of the emerging economic systems with an S? And we'll start with this table next time around, so you guys be ready. 3 minutes, go.
And I think when they was read out.
One minute, we're looking for keywords. You guys good? All right. Okay, here we go. We'll start with table 6 this time. And then we've got one more round of activity and then we're done. So I should have warned you how long this is going to take. John said, take a couple hours. And I was like, no. Okay. So here we go. Everybody listen up. We're looking for characteristics of emerging economic systems. Table 6. Love. Love. From greed to love. Wow. That's a big shift. All right. I don't know what's going on at this table here, but no more drinks for this table. All right, table 5. What's that? Community. Community. Okay. I imagine maybe some of the description of the current system, maybe words like individualism came up, right? Yes. So community is a nice contrast to that. Table 654.
Empathetic diversity sufficiency.
Woo! Wait, hit me again. What was that?
Empathy, diversity, and sufficiency.
They have dashes between those words. So. Empathy, diversity, and sufficiency. All right. Wow. It's still very contrasting. This is very contrasting to that first loop. 6543, table 3.
Coping with natural disaster.
Coping with natural disasters. Okay, another team breaking the one word rule. All right. Coping with natural disasters. Okay, so yeah, part of like the depth of this system and the Hospicine and the transition is like there's some baggage from that first system, right? So we can't ignore the baggage. Table 2. Relational and regenerative. Okay. These are way too optimistic of a group for me. This is nice. Okay, and then table 1.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Well-being.
Well-being. What was the first name you said? Bienestar. Bienestar. Okay. Well-being. Well-being. Love it. And those themes I've heard woven throughout the conference, right? Which is great. It maybe shows a shift in the society in our field of moving on just a kind of purely critique of the current system, right? and this kind of myopic problem-solving kind of frame that we took in the early years to imagining and being bold enough to imagine a different kind of future, right? And maybe that different kind of future is tying back to kind of who we are as human beings, right? Skipping back a few hundred years and or skipping to other kinds of cultures and other kinds of communities that didn't get on this train wreck that our community and our culture and the dominant economic Western culture has been. I mean, I think about a city like Schenectady, right? You all have been walking around Schenectady, thinking about coming and going to Schenectady and thinking about the two loops of a place like Schenectady, right? This is such a great place to have a conference, right? Because all around us are signs of the post-industrial era, right? Are signs of post-growth, are signs of what do we do now, right? Are signs of an economy that was strong and was built for the metrics of the past that isn't working in the current system, the current frame. Can't compete, right? Can't do the things that it was originally designed to do. Being in the Armory is just such a great, inspiring place to have a conference like this, right? Just think of militarism and how this country was built through power and through force, right? And it's reflected by this building and the names of the rooms, like the gun room, right? It's just like walking by that thinking, wow, this is such a, and the freaking dinosaurs and the roaring upstairs, right? And the screamings that's happening. And I'm like, this is the perfect place to have this conference, right? So awesome to think about moving from the first loop to the second loop. Okay, last piece of the puzzle is you all. Because we all have some serious leadership roles to play in moving from the first loop to the second, right? Serious leadership roles to play. And I don't know, I fell into the trap as a young person of thinking a leader was that person up on the stage, right? Was that inspirational, visionary person that sort of inspired us all to follow. And that was a leader. But hopefully we know that it's going to take all kinds and all forms of leadership. And we all have that in us. We exhibit these forms of leadership. We're going to need stabilizers. We're going to need people that are kind of holding the current system together, right? While we sort of try to make this shift and trying to sort of lift up and help those who are most vulnerable to this decline, right? I am a kind of weekend academic administrator. I've been sucked into various administrative positions, all of which have interim in their title. When they try to erase the interim, I leave. But in that interim role, I'm often called to be a stabilizer. I have so many disagreements with how higher education is set up, but I can't change that overnight. And I need to stabilize it, I need to caretake, and I need to make sure that people aren't harmed, right? As we move to the next loop. We're gonna need hospicers, right? We're gonna need people to help shift, especially again, the most vulnerable. Retrain, retool, reskill a society, right? That can survive and thrive in the new system, right? It's so much of this transition that's happening, so much innovation is happening with people who already are privileged or have money or have time, right? Which we all don't have. So the hospicing, right, of a community like Schenectady, or this corridor from Schenectady to Colony to Cohoes. I grew up in this area, so I know it well. Is going to take a lot of hospicing, right? We can't just sort of cold turkey say, okay, we are now switching to this kind of system. Good luck. So we need leadership that looks like hospice care. We're going to need trailblazers, right? We're going to need people that are innovators and entrepreneurial and risk takers, right? People who are just forging ahead and are willing to fail, right? And willing to try new things. I think about my student Rigo, who's given like 14 talks here, right? And he's running around and he's networking and he's trailblazing. And I'm like, that's a trailblazer, Not some, I'm not good at that. He's good at that. Sorry, Rigo, pick on you. But you all know what I'm talking about, right? Have you been, has anyone been in a session that didn't have Rigo? That's what I'm saying, right? So we need trailblazers. And we need, of course, champions. And Herman Daly was a champion. Right? These were the champions, but and that's sort of we hold up as a leader and we name awards after them, right? But that's not the only kind of leadership. That's just one kind. Right? We need stabilizers, hospicers, trailblazers, champions, at a minimum, those kinds of 4 roles, moving out of the first loop and into the second. So your last task is to have a conversation, and I want you to see if you can wear each of these 4 hats. When are you a trailblazer? When are you a champion? When are you a hospicer? When are you a stabilizer? Right? In this thing that we call the economic system. You all, if you really give it some thought, are playing these roles at different times in your day, in your week, in your month, in your year, and certainly across your careers. So again, pair up or have a table chat if you'd like, and give a couple of examples of when you're called upon to be a stabilizer, a hospicer, a trailblazer, or a champion. And we'll share a few examples and then wrap up. Go.
Like, yeah.
Oh, I do all of that.
When have you been a stabilizer? When have you been a hospicer? When have you been a trailblazer? When have you been a champion? We're looking for examples to share. Take another couple of minutes.
All right. And. That's what we're at. So anybody else want to know?
Okay, here we go. Let's pass the mic this time. You're not a shy group, I don't think. I'd love you to stand up, take the mic and say, I was a stabilizer when, so, give us an example. We won't go by table, we'll just call on volunteers. Who wants to go first? You can pick any circle you want. Dealer's choice. Josh wants to go first. Here we go, guys. Josh is gonna give us an example.
I would just go first on behalf of my students. I think they're trailblazers in the way that in many ways they have projected this, like, get a good job, consume a lot. I think what they do is they live very sustainably, they garden, they feed the poor, they ride their bikes everywhere, and they set an example of having more fun living sustainably than most people. So that would be incredible.
Awesome example. Awesome example. Yeah, not only do I feel old getting this award, but I feel old with these students too. They are trailblazers, sure. Another example, another circle. Just make sure we hit all the circles. Another example, come on. It's not a shy group. Justin. People are nominating us.
I guess just stabilizing in terms of trying to make sure that the transitional period is kind to the people that are most vulnerable to it. And I don't know if that applies to my work at all, but I guess just like in terms of the energy system, trying to make sure that the people don't get left behind or fall through the cracks when we'll just electrify everything. That's fine if you have a nice house already, but yeah, so maybe that counts as stabilizing.
Great example, thank you, thank you. Stabilizing, maybe some hotness in there too.
Yeah, if I quote Josh, I thought it was poignant that he said, in many ways, as an individual, it's hard to be one of these things, but this organization as a collective plays a lot of these roles. We talked about hospicer in that we are highlighting some of the arguments for why we should bring an end to growth, why we should bring an end to the fossil fuel economy, and many other things. And we sort of joked that maybe we need to also think of, for some circumstances, bringing out the guillotine. Not being so nurturing. Woo!
Yeah. Not quite the spirit of hospitality, but it's all right, it's all right. That's an official representative of the Biden administration, thank you so much. Okay, Stephen?
Liza's gonna hate me. I'm nominating Liza as my champion. She's kind, she's thoughtful, emotionally and intellectually deep, and speaks words that I have held on to and spoken to myself my entire life about sharing and being real with other people. And I love Liza very much. See my child.
Nominating the champion, that's great. You have a rebuttal? You wanna go? All right.
Well, I have one that's kind of a combination of two categories.
A trailblazer is a person who generates the ideas, and these different revolutionary ideas, and the champion's the one who implements them and making sure that dream becomes a reality.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. Yeah, in my experience, some of the trailblazers are not good champions, right? And some of the champions are not good trailblazers. So, I mean, it takes these kinds of different roles to be played. Another example. Yes.
Similarly, I just wanted to point out that, folks have been kind of changing the narrative around this and haven't necessarily been talking about themselves, but talking about other people. And I think that is also a difference of ecological economics, where you're thinking about more of like the collective and how we all collectively play this part, whether it's a society or grad students or people looking to one another for being models of leaders.
Love it. Love it. Great example. So I think that frame of the individual leader and starts to challenge that. It says, no, it's collections of individuals, it's communities that are going to lead and take on those different roles.
I think just to get rid of my embarrassment, I think we're all champions because we've been like writing in all these journals, getting rejected, getting all these 5-page edits and comments, but still pushing through. So I feel like we're all champions by putting our ideas out there and writing, and critiquing.
That's what a champion is.
Wow. So you can see the point of this exercise is to think about these different hats, think that it doesn't all have to be on one person's shoulder, right? This kind of mindset of like vote for your leader and the person on the stage and like this kind of militarization of leadership, right? Is part of the old system. And really thinking about these different roles, these different hats. I heard this table talking about juggling, right? Juggling between these roles too. When you think about yourself as a spouse, right? Or a brother or sister or a son or a daughter, or someone as a community member, right? You might be playing these different roles, like all 4 of them 4 times a day, right? So it is about your individual ability to kind of think about different leadership roles that you play, but also our collective ability to have a vision of, it's not going to be a common vision, but visions of what this next system might look like. And to imagine this kind of phase that we're all in. People like Herman named it for us, right? And created the Journal of Ecological Economics and the International Society of Ecological Economics and all these regional societies that bring us together to connect, right? But that's only part way down the journey here. We have to take that connection and we have to nourish. And I love nowadays, like when I was a grad student, we didn't have this kind of common language of community of practice. And I hear it all the time now, right? And that's this kind of nourishment. Nourish each other, be a community of practice, right? Work towards not just transitions, but transformations, and do it with care and kindness and to borrow your word, love, right? And then illuminate this path, this transition, this move from the current system to the next system. That's the prize. That's what ecological economics is about. Because the system will change whether you like it or not, right? The system will change either by default or by design. And it's our opportunity right now, especially when you see an article in a major national newspaper come out today about degrowth, to say there's a window, there's an opportunity of systems change by design. Jump through that window and take it, because this is why many of us came into this field 30 years ago, and it's really amazing to see all the young people are in it today. So again, deep honor to be awarded this thing in the name of one of my mentors, Herman Daly. I want to thank John Polomini and Allison and the whole board for organizing this conference. John, if you didn't know, was twice on the city council here in Schenectady. So this is somebody who teaches this, lives it, and practices it, right, on the city board. There are all kinds, and I've seen John personally wear all those different leadership hats since I've known him, going on a long time now. 30 years. Going on 30 years, back when I was 27-year-old assistant professor, and most of my grad students were older than me. Not you, though. You may be the one who was younger than me. So thank you all for this time and this honor, and looking forward to continuing the conversation. Anything to wrap up, John? Are we good? We're wrapped.